Hey everyone, we're live here. My name is Justin Bogart, and you are at the Real Estate Note Investing Be the Bank broadcast for August 9th, 2023. Today, I don't have Richard Thornton with us today, but I do have my friend Emily Thompson with us, and she's got a pretty cool non-performing loan case study that we're going to go over today. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the note industry mortgage market as well. So stay tuned. Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm great, Justin. How are you today?
Pretty good. It's different. Usually I have Richard on these calls here, on these broadcasts, and so it's kind of nice to have a change of pace. So I had, I think I had Shanti Duffy on last time, the loan servicer. Well, she's kind of the one in charge of investor relations and the kind of operations there at Bi-Fi Loan Servicing. So it's fun to have her. I don't think we have Richard on 2 times in a row. I take that back. Richard was on the call. I think he jumped in late. That's what it was. Richard's gone all the time, so it's hard to get him on camera nowadays. Anyways, enough about Richard. So thanks for coming on the broadcast today. And you have a really cool case study that we'll get into later. But I think first we kind of need to establish kind of who you are. So I just for the audience know, I've known Emily for a couple of years now, and she actually works with us at American Note Buyers and helps us out with some stuff. But you wouldn't believe it, but she's actually a full-time doctor. So why don't you go ahead and just talk about you for a minute, Emily, and just set the story there.
Sure. So I am an optometrist, so an eye doctor, and I am located in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I'm originally from Illinois and have a Purdue Boilermaker family. Just saw Justin with his cup there.
Boiler up.
Boiler up. And so I ended up in Oklahoma City, where I met my husband, Jason. Jason is a former IT guy turned full-time landlord property manager. Mm-hmm. And around 2020, we were having a hard time finding deals. So we decided to go into the note space instead of having just a bunch of rentals with our cash left in the deals. So we've been doing notes since beginning of last year, so around January of 2022. And I feel like I've done it all. I've had performing loans, non-performing loans. I've gone through foreclosure, bankruptcy, sold a note, bought several performing notes, done the hypothecation. So I've got a lot of experience with them now. And I'm excited to, learn more and do as many deals as possible.
That's awesome. And thanks for sharing your story there. And that's what I like about hearing about this note business, because you can have a full-time career, and then also you can do this stuff kind of on the side. And the best description that I can give you, and I mean this in a positive way, is that you're a gunslinger in my mind. So you're kind of a shoot first, ask questions later type of mentality investor, which is the complete opposite of your husband, because I know your husband now kind of well. But I like that, because I try to have a little bit of that in me and also a little bit be conservative as well. So I try to balance that act. But in this business, sometimes you got to take some risks and stuff, especially when you get into non-performing. And your case study, which we'll get into later today, a little bit later here, is really cool. And it shows kind of how you saw something that no one else did, and you took the opportunity and ran with it. And it's really good case study. So you guys really need to stay tuned and pay attention to this and ask questions. Whatever social medium that you are on right now, please comment in that comment section. We will get it. We'll probably just throw it up here on the screen as we're talking, and we may save it to the end of the broadcast where we can have a more candid conversation with Emily here. So Emily, so you work at a naval base, right?
It's an Air Force base.
An Air Force base. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said naval base.
They have Navy there too. It's a joint base, technically.
Oh, okay.
But mostly Air Force, but I see pretty much everyone from all of the different services, even public health services, Coast Guard sometimes. So I get a mix.
Oh, wow. Okay. So is there a body of water that's near where the base is, or you're just kind of smack dab in the middle of nothing really?
There's lakes. I'm not sure if I would consider them like large bodies of water.
Like there's no river that connects to the whatever ocean. I don't even know my geography today. Whatever ocean is right there at the tip of Texas and Louisiana.
We have the Illinois River, I'm sorry. Maybe that's right. I don't know. Whatever river we have.
We're really looking good on the show right now.
Whatever river we have downtown is it's really big for like rowing crew and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And so we actually have Olympic and collegiate training facilities for rowing crew. So I think we're actually in the running for a few of the Olympic events coming up in the next year, Summer Olympics next year.
I believe they are. Yeah. That's awesome. Yep. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into our broadcast for today. Let me transition into our slide. Hang in there. Okay, this broadcast would not be possible without some sponsorship. So we'd like to give a shout out to a couple of our sponsors. Of course, American Note Buyers, our company here. We have the deal flow that make your cash flow, and you can reach us at our trade desk, operations@ambfunds.com. If you're looking for deals, partials, full loans, or you're wanting to sell some loans as well, we're definitely open to that opportunity. Our local RIA club is CIREA, CIREIA, Central Indiana Real Estate Investor Association, and that is our executive director's email up there. So if you email executive director at cirea.club, and there's a phone number up there, they're a great source for real estate education. And also being a member of this group, you have connections to a lot of people in Indiana. And Indiana is kind of a hotbed, Emily, if you didn't know already, for real estate investors. There's a lot of wholesalers and landlords. We're kind of a traditional blue collar, blue state, blue Midwest, area. So we got a lot of investors here. So if you're investing around this area, it's good to have some connections. If you're looking for some note investing training, well, we got something for you. Constant Cash Flow is a course that Richard, myself, Larry Gill, and Mariska Pilch put together a couple of years ago. I think we did it during COVID, and we put together about 25 to 30 plus videos. They're all between the length of like 5 to 9 minutes long. And they really just give you the foundational knowledge of real estate note investing. And so if you reach out to info@ambfunds.com and just ask about Constant Cash Flow, we'll get you the link so you can check it out. I think it's about $300 or $400 for the course. It's a lifetime membership, and we keep adding to it with case studies and other things like that. Our self-directed IRA sponsorship is New View Trust Company. If you email new accounts at newviewira.com, they will get you all the information you need about self-directed IRAs, solo 401ks, educational savings accounts for your kids going to college, HSAs, all those things that are investable in real estate and lending money and buying notes, what we do. They're a real good company for that. So if you mention this broadcast, they're going to waive the setup fee for you. How about that? This slide is just for our local RIA members here. So we have about 800 RIA members in the Indianapolis area that are part of our CIREA club. So we just wanted to remind you guys that there's a Facebook, there's a LinkedIn page, and an Instagram page. And then for those of you that want to get the PHP credits for watching our broadcast today, just get out your little smartphone here and just pull out the camera and hover over that QR code, and you can enter in your name and email address, I believe, to get your PHP credits. And lastly, before we get into the meat of the conversation, we have a podcast called Be the Bank. Richard and I mainly are the hosts on there. Sometimes I interview guests as well. You can download this on all of the podcast directories like Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher. There's just a ton of different ones out there. I don't know them all. There's like 40 or 50 of them now, I think, Emily. But subscribe to it. It's called Be the Bank. We've been doing it for 5 seasons now. It comes out every other week. Our episodes are anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes long. They're really topics are kind of focused on debating stuff. And so Richard and I often will be on there together and we'll be talking, the pros and cons of different things from our view, or we may have slightly different views, and we go over that as well. Pretty fun. Okay, Emily. So this is going to be a couple of slides here. And I know you haven't been on a broadcast before, but I think you've watched a couple of times. We sometimes go over the Black Knight financial data. And Black Knight is just a company out there that goes over the entire mortgage industry. There's about 55 million mortgages out there that are kind of monitored and watched, and they're a group that comes up with reporting and analysis for that. And so every month they come up with a report and they give us some data points. There's a lot of data out there for this. I just pull out a couple of slides that I think are important. So have you heard foreclosures are up, Emily?
I have.
I have too. And I often see on like social media and news feeds and things like that, people are blowing foreclosures up as if they are back to where they were. If you look at this chart, if you see the 2008 timeframe, you can say, yeah, there were a lot of foreclosure starts then, right? 250 to 300,000, but there's next to nothing right now compared to what that is. You will notice a little gap in there. This is why I wanted to point this slide out. So from 2020-06, that little tick at the bottom of the graph, to 2022-06, you'll see there is basically, let's just call it 15,000 foreclosure starts that are happening during those months because of COVID and things of restrictions, obviously. And then when they got lifted, things jumped back up really quickly to not the recession levels, but kind of what we call pre-pandemic levels, which is hovering right at about 50,000 or under. So a lot of people took that as the sky is falling, right? Chicken Little, the sky is falling. There's all these foreclosures. They're up 1,000%. Well, yeah, that is mathematically correct. They were up a large percentage from the month before, but by no means is this something that's scary or bad for our economy. So foreclosures are just what they should be. They're very low amounts of foreclosures. There's not a lot going on still relative to what it was back in 08, 09, and 2010. And so I just want to kind of point that out. Did you see anything else on this slide that stands out to you?
No, it looks about the same as it was around 2006 before things started to escalate a bit during the financial crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the national payment ratio, Emily, is something that I see in this slide data report quite often. And it's interesting to monitor it because, as you can see, the blue line shows what the payment to income ratio is to afford like the median priced house across the country. So whatever that number is, let's just call it $350,000. And we're going to say the median income for a family across the country on average, let's say, is like, I don't know, let's just say $65,000. That's kind of what we're comparing it to. So we're just saying, hey, 36.4% of that monthly income, 36.4% of the monthly income goes towards the payment of the house. So that's kind of what they're saying there. So since the mortgage rate keeps rising in the green part of the graph, obviously the payment to income ratio also rises as well. And there's a delta in between there. And you notice the delta in 2021-07 is quite large compared to the delta, as it was in 2022-07 versus that. So it's interesting. I think it's high. I mean, it feels really high. It feels really unaffordable, which is why you keep hearing things about it's not affordable to get houses right now. Everything costs too much. And this is the reason why. It's not like it was back in 2012. I'm trying to read my chart here, where the payment ratio was so low, was under 20%. It looks like for a national payment to income average, which is extremely affordable, but it's the complete opposite now. It's not like that in every market, though. Let's talk about that. So the top 10 affordable markets, and you may recognize some of these cities because you actually live close to one of these cities, right?
Yes.
Oklahoma City, number 3. Are you near Oklahoma City or in Oklahoma City?
I am. I'm in downtown Oklahoma City, actually.
All right, right in the heart of it.
Yep.
So 25% of the national average household income goes towards paying national average house, right? So that's what they're saying in your area is what it costs to afford an average home in your area, as compared to 95 2003 when it was 21.6%. So it's only 3.5% delta difference between there, which isn't that much. Indianapolis, Indiana is just pretty close where I live. It's a 6.3% change, 25% again. It's pretty affordable. So basically, the most affordable place is Cleveland, Ohio, right now. And then obviously on the bottom chart, the least affordable place is Los Angeles, California. And that hasn't changed since we've been seeing these data reports for the last couple of years. LA area, San Jose, San Francisco, all that stuff has been really unaffordable, or least affordable, I should say, not unaffordable. Some people out there are really rich. So anything else stand out to you? Any places that you're like, oh, I'm surprised that's on there?
I'm kind of surprised that Chicago is on the most affordable markets. I'm wondering if that's like downtown, like the city, within the city limits of Chicago, or if that's the surrounding suburbs and things like that too.
That's a pretty good observation. I was noticing that as well. It's actually been on the data reports for a while as an affordable place. I don't know why either. It's kind of weird. Most note investors, as you know, Emily, because you're a note investor, they kind of stay away from buying notes in Chicago, Illinois, because there's just some nasty laws that just don't help out us as note buyers. They're not as friendly to us, excuse me, as they would be in other areas in the states. But there's got to be a reason for that, and I don't know what the reason is, but that is interesting. It's the biggest city up there in the top 10 by far.
I know at our local Oklahoma City RIA group, we talk about how our market seems to be shielded from a lot of these large swings that you notice in like valuations or the ups and downs that you'd see in some of these other markets. So that's something that they've talked about for the past 6 or 7 years since I've been going.
Nice. I was kind of surprised to see Nashville as not affordable, or least affordable in the bottom 10.
Hasn't that been an extension of California now?
Yeah. People are going from there to there, right? From California to there. But Richard stayed. He's staying. He planted his roots there. By God, he's not leaving.
He's stubborn, right?
He is. Well, that was the comments that I had about the Black Knight financial data. So again, if you guys have any questions or comments, because we're getting ready to get into Emily's part of the presentation now, please chime in on the comment queue. If you just want to say hi and give a shout out where you're at, we would love to hear that as well. The real deal, Emily Thompson. You are the real deal. So Emily, this is a really cool case study. I'll kind of set the table just very lightly because I want you to be able to explain a lot of this stuff, because no one, quite frankly, probably wants to hear me talk. But you had found a non-performing loan that was a commercial loan. So it's basically a mortgage on a commercial property. And it wasn't just a traditional mortgage. It was actually a hard money loan. And so that's what Emily had found, and that's what she had bought. And we're going to walk through kind of what she did. So Emily, you want to kind of set the table here?
Sure. After Note Expo in November last year, I was cruising PaperStack, one of the websites where you can find both performing and non-performing notes for sale. And I saw this this loan that was in Oklahoma City. And I'm like, I live in Oklahoma City. If I'm going to foray into the non-performing space, for the first loan or two, I wanted to feel more comfortable having it local, so that if there was anything that went wrong, I could micromanage, which is one of my character traits, or character flaws, if you will.
Okay.
I like to be in control, and it felt like I could control more things locally.
Well, it makes sense, right? Everyone's first deal, they want to have it in their backyard. It never works out that way. It just happened to work out that way for you.
Right. So I found this loan on PaperStack, and I could see who the seller was. And so I asked my network, hey, does anybody know this person? And it turns out that he's a hard money lender in town. I haven't met him, but my husband was actually on his mailing list already.
Oh, that's funny.
So we talked with Rodney, and he was offering the note. So he wrote the note to the borrower for a 12-month loan, interest only payments each month, and the balloon balance was due at the end of the 12 months. So the borrower was supposed to use this loan to fix up the property so that he could refinance it with a bank back when rates were lower.
Right. Yeah.
And then pay off the hard money lender. Okay. So the original balance on the loan was $180,000, and that was at 13% interest, which is a typical hard money loan rate for a commercial property. And so he owed I don't remember how much it was each month in interest, but he just had to pay the interest payments. Yeah. Another neat factoid about this loan, after we started digging into the documents, was that if the borrower defaulted, there was an additional 11% default rate that went on top of the 13% from the time of the default. So that's a 24% interest rate after he defaulted.
That sounds like a credit card.
Yes. So he's got those credit card rates. And so the borrower paid, I think he paid for about 6 or 7 months and then kind of just stopped paying. He let his interest lapse, or I'm sorry, he let his insurance lapse. Okay. And so that actually triggered the default based on the paperwork that we were reading through. So based on the mortgage and note.
Cool. All right, let's get into the property itself here before we get back into the terms and talk about the numbers and stuff. So this is the property here?
It is. So it's an 8-unit apartment building. It's vacant because the borrower borrowed the money so that he could fix up the apartments and then rent it out. Per the agreement, he was not supposed to be living in the apartment, but when we drove past a few times, we have a feeling that he was actually living there. That it did seem that there were some updates being done on the interior of the property. We saw power tools and things like that. On the inside, it looked like there was maybe a French drain that was put in on the side of the building to kind of improve drainage because it does have a basement. But it didn't look like there was that much work done. I didn't see $180,000 worth of work done on the property when we drove by. This is in a very desirable part of town. So we have this street called 23rd Street where there's a lot of restaurants. There are music venues, theater. So it's a really popular part of town. There are several other buildings similar to this style on that street and in that neighborhood. So we thought, based on the property itself and the default interest rate, that this would be a pretty good loan for us to go after.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. The building looks awesome. I imagine this being like a fraternity house. This is what it looks like. And
there's some pretty cool architecture in this part of town.
It looks the building looks really nice on the outside. Like the brick looks really well. Of course, this picture, obviously is not fully detailed, but from the looks of it, it doesn't look like there's that much maintenance on the outside to take care of. So.
There's more on the back side.
Was it completely missing?
No, but there was some stuff that needed to be done, definitely. So all right. I think there was some foundation issues. It looked like some of the brick needed to be majorly repointed and things like that.
Did you know what the $180K was going to go towards? Did you ever find that out? Like exactly what the plan was? Yeah.
We did not. No.
Okay. How much is this worth?
So my husband thought that this was worth about $450,000 to $600,000 in its as-is condition. Okay. That's without us walking through, just making assumptions that the interior needed most of the work done, like new paint, probably new flooring, new appliances, all of that kind of thing. Yeah. So based on our drive-bys and comparing it to other buildings in the area, and my husband's pretty conservative when he estimates his values. So that's what the range where he expected that to be. Okay.
So after it's fixed up?
After it's fixed up, we expect it to be worth between $1 and $1.2 million. Nice. So it definitely has upside potential. And again, that is based on recent sales in the area. So pretty good little property there.
So an 8-unit cash flowing worth 1.2 million. The guy puts in 180K when it's worth 500 as is. I mean that's almost double your value pretty quickly. So that seems like a pretty good investment for this guy, right? The borrower.
Yes, definitely. So he had a good reason to protect his property.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about them for a minute. So I know we up here on the slide it says they inherited properties into a trust.
Yeah. So this borrower had, based on doing some research through like the county treasurer and property websites,
Yeah.
we found that he didn't. So this property was in a trust, and there were other buildings in the trust. During this process, we got to know the note seller, the hard money lender, pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a pretty thorough background check on his borrowers. And so he was telling me that this particular borrower had like a vacant church in his trust. There was another vacant lot behind that building that was in the borrower's trust. So he definitely had multiple properties around town that were all in the same trust. And so if he were to open himself to like a bankruptcy type of situation, that would open up his whole trust to loss possibly.
Right. All right. So I want everyone to understand why this is such a sweet little deal that Emily found, because of all the protection that the lender has. So Emily didn't mention this specifically, but I wanted to point this out, that this was the only mortgage, on this property. So what does that mean? Let's just call it 500,000 because it's a round number. Let's say it's worth $500,000 as an apartment building, and the lien is only 180,000 on it. So this is kind of the opposite. Usually, the liens would be like $20,000, and then they'd only have $180,000 in equity. It would be the opposite of that, right? But in this situation, there's only basically the guy has 66% equity in it as is before he even fixes it up. So it's a really sweet deal because it's a protection for the lender, meaning there's a ton of space for the collateral to grow, and then it's protection for the borrower's highly motivated to keep this property, because if the lender takes it back through foreclosure, guess what? If you get a clean deed on this one, man, you're making a lot of money here, right? So you have this non-performing commercial hard money loan. It's not a traditional mortgage. It's supposed to mature in 12 months. And after 6 to 7 months, this loan is considered in default, because the first thing that triggered the default, Emily, you said, was the insurance went lapse, or the insurance got canceled.
Yes.
So then and there, the interest rate starts going to 24%, like you mentioned. So it was a $180,000 loan in the beginning at 13% interest. And then on top of that, the 24% interest default kicked in. So by this time, when you're looking at the loan, it has an estimated legal balance of almost $223,000. Now, the definition of legal balance is basically what the principal balance owed is, plus anything extra that you're allowed to add on to the loan. So that's really what you got here, right?
Yep.
So you're getting an additional 162 bones a day in interest that you're collecting on as this thing's going through. So this is what's really cool about your story, is that you came up with the idea. Basically, you just have two exit strategies, right? And I'll kind of let you explain them here.
Sure. So when we were looking at this note, my husband was very excited about the possibility of doing something called a seller finance.
Okay.
So as Justin mentioned, the property only had the one more lien on it. So this note, it was a paid off property. If we were trying to work with the owner of the property, the borrower, and say, okay, you have this property that's worth, $500,000 as is. If you will seller finance the property to us in the current condition, we will pay you $500,000 minus the $180,000 that you owe, and seller finance the rest. Or if you sold it to us and we're the bank, then you would be getting these monthly payments from us, and we would get the building. So then we were probably going to have, I think he said about $300,000 in repairs to fix up the property to get it to that $1 to $1.2 million value. And with our portfolio and connections, that was definitely doable with our banks in the area. So we were really trying to talk this borrower into selling it to us and forgiving his loan so that we could obtain the property and add it to our portfolio. So that was our first strategy.
This is really cool idea, because the situation the borrower's in, they're kind of in dire straits, right? They might not have the money to pay this off, and they're already behind, they're already in default, and the clock is ticking every day, and that interest is adding on, or let's say the juice is getting bigger every day, right?
Exactly.
So this was a great strategy that you guys came up with to kind of leverage your position and say, hey, look, we can forgive this debt, and then we can just switch the roles, and we'll just start paying you, and you actually make more money this way, right? It seems like a great deal for him.
Exactly. And so we weren't trying to take advantage of him because we wanted to offer him the, full retail value, which most investors like ourselves don't want to pay more than 70 cents on the dollar for properties, right? So we were planning to offer him like full value, have an appraisal done, and so go that route so that he would be getting the monthly payment from us for 20 years, 30 years, whatever terms we decided was appropriate for that. So we thought it was a win-win for everyone. We help him get out of that tough situation that he got himself into while he also gets money. And then we have the property that we can rent out and, add value to our portfolio as well.
Absolutely. It'd be great to have an 8-unit cash flowing property like that for only have, $500K into it. That'd be great. And your other option is?
So our other option was if he's not interested in that or we can't make it work, then we would just pursue the foreclosure. We knew that there would be a few $1,000s worth of fees for that, and then collect our unpaid balance at the auction because we knew that we weren't, based on the value of the property currently and the amount that the borrower owed, that we would likely not, it would be outbid. So like our unpaid balance would be outbid at the sheriff's sale. It would sell for more than that.
Yeah.
So we just assumed that we would cash out and then call it a day.
Right. Yeah. If it's worth 500 as is, I mean, someone's probably going to pay 400 for it, right?
Definitely.
Because they can see the value in it, just like you guys saw the value in it. So yeah, it makes total sense. So your strategy number one was really cool. So I'm going to help illustrate this visually for people that are watching and listening to this today, so they can kind of hear and see what's going on here. So you have this 8-unit apartment building. I got these great graphics here. I know you got the borrower here, and you got Emily, the lender, down here. So in the scenario exit strategy number one, where she's trying to reverse the roles and try to be the borrower and him be the bank, at first, this guy is on the deed, and Emily bought the mortgage, the non-performing commercial mortgage. And so she's technically the lender now. And so she's saying, hey, I will forgive this debt here, and I'm just going to buy from you the actual property, and I want you to be the financier for me, and then I'll start paying you cash flow, and then we're ready to go on this property because, like you said, you have all the connections, you guys know what you're doing. You can easily add this to your portfolio, this, that, and the other. So that's kind of what Emily was trying to do there. So hopefully that visual kind of helped show things. So that didn't happen, did it?
So when we acquire non-performing loans, our first step is always to try to reach out to the borrower and see what the situation is, and see what we can do to help both parties out. So we want to get paid, obviously, but we also don't want to take advantage of anyone. So if there are things that we can do, we want to do as much as we can. And that's the nice thing about notes, because we have that ability as an individual, whereas Chase Bank, they don't get to make decisions like that.
Right.
So that's why I think this is a really great way to help people out, but also be your own bank.
Right.
So we reached out to the borrower and weren't able to get in touch with him. I think Jason drove by and like taped a note onto the door of the property saying, hey, contact us, call us here, and that type of thing, because we've seen him there before. So we
Okay.
knew he was there based on the description from the hard money lender. So we knew he was there. We also knew from our due diligence that he was a litigious person.
Okay.
So there were lots of his name showed up a lot.
Okay. When you looked him up in the county
on our judicial like website.
Yeah.
So we were looking through all of those different things. And so we figured that we were kind of in it for a few months and back and forth with lawyers. So since we hadn't heard from him, I went ahead and hired a lawyer, and we started our foreclosure process.
Okay.
And so the lawyer took a very long time to calculate the actual amount owed.
Okay.
So when you're buying a note that is self-serviced,
Yeah.
sometimes it can be kind of tricky to figure out the right amount. And because we knew that he was on the litigious side, we wanted to make sure that our numbers were very good going into the process. So we started the foreclosure. I believe within a week of filing the foreclosure, he lawyered up, and they filed some things. And so we were ready to dig our heels in and fight for it.
Okay.
Time was on our side because of the interest rate. So the borrower eventually reached out to us, and he wanted to discuss his options, which can happen after you start the foreclosure process. They're like, oh, wow, this is real. I don't want this on my record. I don't want to lose everything, kind of thing. So they might be more willing to talk once you start that situation. So my husband is he's the talker, the go-getter, the closer.
Yeah.
Sometimes I call him the bulldog.
The bulldog. Yeah.
The negotiator.
Yeah.
So I had my negotiator talk to him, and at first he wanted us to reduce the amount owed. Now, a lot of times you'll be taught, don't pay full price or the face value of the loan. So we violated that rule when we purchased this loan at the face price because of the interest rate. So the interest rate was so high that, and that's allowed on hard money loans and like commercial properties. You wouldn't want to do that for, your rental your mortgage that you're writing for someone who's a homeowner that's going to be living in the property.
Right.
That's a no-go. But in this situation, it was fine. So he wanted us to reduce the amount owed, and because we bought it at the face value, we just couldn't do that. That wasn't an option for us. So we said no.
The loan was for 180, and you paid 180 for it.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So and I partnered with someone else, so I didn't get to keep the full amount, and we didn't feel like between the two of us it was worth it to cancel out some of that amount owed. So then he decided that he told my husband, well, I can't make this payment, and I want to sell it to you for $1 million the way that it is. I won't sell it for anything less than $1 million. And my husband's like, well, I mean, we'll get an appraisal, and whatever the appraisal says is a reasonable price is what we are happy to pay you, but it's not going to be $1 million. And he's like, then he starts changing his tune, and he's like, well, I can't sell it. And we're like, well, why not? Why can't you sell it? It looks like you've got lots of other properties. And he's like, I just can't sell it, because he was living in it.
Okay. Right. He didn't want to say it, but that's what it was.
Right. So he said he changed his tune. He's like, I can't sell it. And so that conversation turned ugly, I believe. And so then he started threatening that he's like, oh, I'm just going to drag this out, and I'm going to file bankruptcy. And so my husband pointed out to him, if you file bankruptcy, this is under the trust, which opens all of your assets that are in your trust to scrutiny based on that bankruptcy. And so he started to get huffy at that point, I believe. I wasn't there. I wasn't listening. And he's like, okay, fine. Well, I don't have enough money. I think he was borrowing money from his relatives to pay off the balance. And that's
Okay.
why he wanted to reduce the amount owed, because he couldn't get his relatives to give him that much money.
Gotcha.
So he finally said, okay, fine. What is the balance owed? And this was after my husband pointed out to him that we were collecting an extra $126 a day or $146 a day in interest. So the longer he drew it out, the more he ended up owing, the less equity he had in his property that could be taken away from him.
Yeah.
So when, kind of a side note, when property goes to the sheriff's auction, I set my bid for how much money I'm owed. If it sells for more than that, which this one likely would, then the difference between how much I'm owed and how much it sells for goes to the borrower.
Mhm.
So he would probably get some money out of it, but he
Yeah.
knew that he wasn't going to get $1 million worth of money out of it. Like, he
Right.
potentially has a value in it.
Yeah.
So after my husband had this conversation with him, a few days later, he emails me and asked me for the payoff statement. And so then I ended up with a check in the mail a few days later. And there's my big fat check. It's 6 figures. And I asked my husband when I got the check, I'm like, hey, is this how you felt when you got your first rent check? And he goes, no. And I'm like, that's because it wasn't 6 figures.
It feels good, right?
It felt great. So that's the day I got the big fat check. I had to take a picture of it to show my mom and dad and prove to them that
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Hey, look, I made money.
Outside of the eye doctor realm, I know what I'm doing in the notes.
Right.
So it took about 3 months from when we purchased the note.
Okay.
And we got paid, and we spent about $7,000 in legal fees with the lawyer, and there were some other liens that had attached to the property
Okay.
in that time frame. And we did have to get a forced place insurance policy on the property, which was expensive because it was a commercial property and so large. So after that, we ended up making a pretty decent profit. We did not have to finish the foreclosure. So when he paid me off, that just stopped it. So he doesn't have any foreclosures on his, record. So that's my check amount. And we netted about $39,000 in 3 months. So
that's pretty good. And for just making some phone calls and working with an attorney, it's not
yeah,
not that bad.
I feel like it wasn't a lot of work on my part. And honestly, the lawyer that I was working with was hilarious. He was one of the lawyers, the foreclosure lawyers for when Oklahoma City had a bank that like closed up in the 1980s, I want to say. So
Okay.
it was like a big bank crash. And he was the person who foreclosed with that bank. So he has a lot of experience.
Okay.
And when I talked to him, he said that he was working with a lot of insurance companies and doing like insurance claims and things like that. So he's kind of bored. And he said he wanted to jump back into the foreclosures again. So he was excited to tackle this. And I think he was disappointed when I sent him that picture telling him that he didn't need to do anything else.
Right. That's awesome. Well, congratulations. This was a really cool non-performing case study. It was really neat how you recognize the loan. You recognize all the attributes we talked about. You got the loan at par as opposed to buying it for a discount because you knew it was a hard money loan that got, an extra, 11%. Yeah, 11% defaulted interest on top of the interest that accrues monthly as well. You knew the property could be worth well over $1 million once you put some rehab work into it if you can get it back. So you found all these things that other people wouldn't dive into because it was in your own backyard. Obviously, it helped a lot. So this is a really cool story, Emily. So well done.
Thank you.
And then your return on that was, as you put it, pretty damn good for a short amount of time. So that was a cool story. If anybody's got any questions about that, go ahead and please chime them in. We're going to go ahead and get to a performing loan that I have for sale. Just happen to have it for sale. It's in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's a duplex, so that means both sides are paying rent. The borrower, the landlord that bought this, put down a $25,000 down payment. The current UPB is just under $75K. It's a 12% interest rate. It's a very short term, so the monthly payment's almost $900 a month. Pretty good payment. I think it's one of those 10-year loans that it's probably got 11 some years left. There we go. Yeah, 176 months are left on it. So the property's worth easily $100K right now, and we're asking $71K for the balance on that loan. So you receive about $900 a month in principal and interest payments on this loan, and the borrower has already got some skin in the game. They've already got about 26% equity already in the deal as we speak. So it's a pretty cool deal. If this interests you, just go ahead and give us a shout at operations@ambfunds.com, and we can give you some more details about it if you'd like. You're interested in buying it. Emily, we also buy seller finance notes and note and mortgages, land contracts, contracts for deeds, note and deed of trust, lease options, anything that's a first lien residential, really, we buy it. So just take out your smartphone here and hover it. Take out your camera, hover over the QR code. It'll pull up our form for you to fill out the information for us to buy your loan. We'll usually get back to you within a day or two, no more than 2 days, and just kind of give you a ballpark price of where we'd be at on it, and we can go from there. The next time we meet, guys, on this broadcast is going to be Wednesday, September 13th from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget, if you're interested in our fund for our investment fund, contact us at investors@ambfunds.com. And now we are going to transition over to the more of the Q&A side. Emily, before we do, some of you are actually in our Facebook group. We do have one called Be the Bank Real Estate Note Investing. So if you see that, actually I need to change the logo now that I think about it. It's different now. It doesn't look like the American Note Buyers logo. I need to change that. So anyways, look for us on the Facebook group. Please join us. This is where this stuff airs, and you can ask questions, and people like Emily or myself can answer your questions in the group as well. So I'm going to move the PowerPoint over, Emily, so that we can have a conversation if I can get my mouse to move. Hang in there. All right, Emily, cool. Thanks. That was a really cool case study. And I guess I think I answered some of my questions here. I guess I wish I would have known what this guy was, how he was going to rehab for 180, because I believe you and Jason figured you'd have to put about 300K into it. Is that what I heard?
I think that some people borrow like a smaller amount of money so that they can fix up like 1 or 2, maybe 3 apartments that can cash flow while they're getting funding for rehabbing the rest of it. So for the full scale rehab, and again, my husband is on the conservative side and with his values and costs. That would be doing it to our standards. I like to joke that we're slumlords, but our properties are the nicest properties in the neighborhoods. And his philosophy is that we fix things up on the front end before we get someone to move in. So then we have less issues to deal with later on. So that's where his estimate of the $300,000 to fix it up comes from.
Okay. And this is like a couple of 2-1s and some 1-1s, I assume, if like 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedroom, 1 bath.
I think that that's what we assumed. And I think that there was like a laundry facility in the basement, or the potential for a laundry facility. Along the back of the property, there was like a really large garage. So it had parking as covered parking as well, which is important in Oklahoma where it hails.
Okay. No, that makes sense. As opposed to getting street parking and dinged by all the whatever comes by.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I didn't think about that, a laundry facility. That makes sense, as opposed to having units in the actual apartments themselves.
Yeah, a lot of these older buildings like that just don't have the space for it, or they like putting in the plumbing for that would be pretty expensive. So a lot of those brick buildings in that area just have like a single laundry facility in the basement, not in the units themselves.
So I remember something from the beginning of this broadcast that you mentioned about this property, and this is my dad joke for the day. So bear with me if this is rough here. You mentioned a French drain they were putting in. Is that also known as a wee wee drain?
I haven't heard it called that.
Well, that just came up with that on the fly. I've been holding that in all broadcast. Okay, I had to wait till the
You've
end.
been holding in your wee wee all broadcast?
No, I've been holding in that comment. I went to the bathroom before the broadcast. I took care of that. So, anyways, all right. I don't think we have any questions about your case study or what we went over today, but that doesn't mean you still can't ask some more questions. This is a pretty cool case study. So I'm glad that we got to get on here and got to do this. And thanks for being a part of American Note Buyers and all the stuff that you contribute to our marketing and sales and our trade desk and stuff and all the stuff that we do. So we appreciate that, Emily. And if you have anything else you want to add to what you did with this non-performing loan, I guess go ahead and mention it now. Otherwise, we can sign off.
Well, I guess my husband's sad that he told that guy how much he's losing out in interest each day, because we could have drug it on a little bit longer and made more money.
Yeah. Extra was $162 a day. Is that what it was?
Something like that.
That's pretty nice. Yeah.
I'm still looking for another one. I'm still looking for another one like that. So this one was in the hard money lender's IRA. And so he didn't want to foreclose from his IRA. So he just decided to get rid of it. And I've been on his podcast and we talked about it then. And he closed it by saying, "This is the most money anyone's ever made off of me."
Cha-ching.
Right.
Cool. All right, Emily, thanks so much for being on the broadcast for today, and everyone listening and watching our broadcast. We really do appreciate it. And until the next time, September 13th, we'll see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye.